Okay, so there's one tricky thing though. So let's just go back to a number. What happens if I multiply both sides by a negative number? Okay, so 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. But how does that change the relationship? Is negative 5 less than negative 6? It is not, right? It is actually greater than. Okay, how about like if we divide? Again, it flips. Okay, so whenever you're multiplying by negative, you have to think of the number line as a mirror, just like when we were talking about opposites, right? Oops, and I want 6 too. Okay, so if you think of it like a mirror, so when you have just 5 and 6, right, 5 is less than 6, right? But then if you were going to look at this in a mirror view, if you multiply it by a negative, you do the opposites, you're essentially kind of flipping the whole thing. So everything now is flipping to that side, and then now the relationship is different. Right, so, well, if you look, actually, right, negative 6 is less than negative 5, but because we mirror switch them, we flip them, when you write it out, negative 5 is greater than negative 6. Okay, so I hope that wasn't confusing, but just think of it like a mirror, a visual where everything flips. So whenever you multiply by a negative or divide by a negative, when you're transforming number, oh sorry, I should say multiplying and dividing with a negative number, then you're gonna flip the sign. Okay, so that's the one tricky thing with inequalities. It's still just like solving an equation, but then you have to pay attention to, so let's do an example. Okay, I want to divide by negative 4, but see how I'm dividing by a negative number? If I'm gonna divide by negative, I have to flip my sign. So this sign is now going to flip. Instead of being greater than, it's going to be less than. And then 48 divided by negative 4 is negative 12. So I flipped it. And let's draw this on a number line. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, oops, 11, 12. Jeez, I should have went. Keeps going. Right, let's check it. So numbers less than negative 12, negative 13, negative 4 times negative 13. 4 times 13 is 52, and then a negative times a negative is a positive, right? Is 52 greater than 48? Yes, it is. Okay, so you can see, because I flipped the sign, it works out. If I didn't flip the sign, it wouldn't work out, right? Then I'd start picking numbers on this side, and they would not work for this equation. And that's because you just have to think of, if you notice, right, this side is positive. This side, if I put negative numbers, I'm multiplying the first number by any kind of negative number. It's going to be positive, right? And so this is why it gets a little tricky, but as long as you remember this rule, if you're multiplying or dividing both sides by a negative number, just flip the sign and you'll get the right answer. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the 7 first. So right now I'm just adding and subtracting, so my sign stays the same. I'm not going to flip it or anything. Now, because I'm dividing both sides by a negative number, my sign is now going to flip. Oh, I somehow made 2 examples that got the same answer. That's weird. Alright, so x is less than negative 12. And you're always free to check it. Just going to do 13 again. So negative 5 times negative 13 is going to be positive. Right. We have 65. 65 minus 7 is 58. Is 58 greater than 53? Yes, it is. That checks out. Yeah, you can check another. You could check more if you wanted. You could check negative 14, negative 15. But checks are not necessary. That's only like if you're unsure or if a problem asks you to check. All right, but otherwise, this is your right answer right here. Okay, so hopefully it's still the same. You just have to remember that weird rule, right? Let's solve this one a little bit more complicated. We have x on both sides. We have some distribution. But we know we have all the tools to do this, right? First thing you want to do is let's just simplify both sides. Okay, something I like to do here. This one's a little tricky. I'm going to change this to adding the opposite so that I remember that I'm distributing negative 4. So then I'm going to keep the 12 plus negative 4 times x. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20. Okay. I can add together my numbers. So I have 32 plus negative 4x. And actually, I want to do this one because I want to show you something. So we can do this 2 ways. So I'm going to actually split this. And then we'll do it again here. The 2 ways that you'll see will get the same answer. Okay, so the first way I want to do it is I'm going to choose to get rid of the x on this side. Okay, get rid of it there. 32 plus negative 5x. It's an 8. So now I have to get rid of my 32. That is 24, right? Oh, why did I do that? I picked it's going to form a fraction. That's fine. We won't graph it. Okay, so I'm dividing both sides by a negative number. That means my sign needs to flip, right? From less than to greater than. And then negative divided by negative is just positive. So I'm just gonna keep it in fraction form. It's good enough for me. Okay, now what happens if I want to, let's get rid of the x on this side. Move to the other side. Okay, that means I want to get rid of this 8 here. 32 minus 8. 24. Okay, I need to get rid of the 5. This time I'm dividing by a positive, so I actually don't have to flip my sign. So then x is greater than 24 over 5ths. If it helps you to always have the x on the left side, you can. Just remember the greater than is pointing at the x. And if you look, we got the same answer. And this one, I didn't divide both sides by a negative number. It was by positive. This one I did, so my sign flipped. But you can see how just the way you choose to do your problem, you might end up flipping, you might not, but you're still going to get the right answer as long as you're following the rules. But I think that's just interesting that, yeah, because it depends on which variable you're going to move on what side. Okay, so yeah, that's solving inequalities. Again, it's just like solving equations. You transform them just like you would an equation, and you just have to remember this little weird extra rule where if you divide both sides by a negative or you multiply both sides by a negative number, you flip your sign. That's just the one addition.